The following is a paid advertisement. The views expressed are the sole responsibility of the advertiser.
Put the power back in your hands. This is Behind the Law with attorney Justin Clark.
And welcome to Behind the Law. Happy weekend to you. We have a great show lined up, but first allow me to introduce you to my beautiful co-host, Makaila Nichols. Hello, Makaila. How are you?
Great.
You are the voice of the person at home. You are not a lawyer. I am a lawyer. You ask questions that people at home really have, correct?
I mean, yeah, that's my job.
Don't forget, we are here live with you. If you have any questions whatsoever, we have people standing by to answer them. 321-282-1055. Here's what's coming up. Greg Krak will join us to talk about homeowners insurance claims. Obviously, the hurricane rolled through. What do you do when it comes to making a claim with your insurance? Also, we will introduce you to a fantastic lawyer named Vincent Citro. He does federal criminal defense, represented many famous people here locally. He's fantastic at what he does as well. Great show, Makaila. How do you feel? Are you ready?
I am.
Are you going to ask a lot of questions? Over under 4 questions today.
I'm going to try.
I love it. All right, let's do this. Here's what we'll do. Very quick break. When we return, Behind the Law continues. Does credit card debt have you spinning out of control? You are not helpless. At Attorneys Justin Clark and Associates, our goal is to lower or even eliminate your credit card debt. Call me today or visit youhavepower.com and take back control of your financial life. Is student loan debt holding you back? I'm Attorney Justin Clark. You may have the power to lower or even eliminate the payments that have you living paycheck to paycheck. Call me now for a free consultation or visit youhavepower.com and take back control of your life. Welcome back, and we continue to get your questions and your calls in regards to your first-party insurance claims, meaning your house was damaged during the storm. What do you do? How do you fix it? That's why Greg Krak is back. Greg, how are you, sir?
Good, thanks.
This is what you do. You've built your career on helping people file their first-party insurance claims, but something happened on this show a couple weeks back. We had State Rep Anthony Sabatini here, and he said some things that some people were a little bit upset about. Here's what Anthony Sabatini said the other day, and I'd like to get your take on it. I don't know who's right. I honestly don't know who's right, who's wrong. It seems like it's homeowners insurance versus the attorney, public adjuster, roofing company combination, and we're at war right now in this state. Who's right?
I'm pretty biased. I think the consumer is always right. Yeah. I think when it comes to insurance versus the trial attorneys, that the insurance companies are more right in regards to Florida. A majority of all first-party property claims, all lawsuits against insurance companies occur in Florida. Out of all 50 states, a majority of all the cases. There's a lot of money to be made. There's hundreds of thousands of claims every year against insurance companies. Most of them are frivolous. They just are. And for a long time, trial lawyers have bought off legislators in the state legislature to prevent tort reform from passing. I've watched it firsthand. I see it all the time. I don't need to convince you of it. Just drive down 441 or any interstate and you'll see nothing but trial lawyer billboards. There's a reason for that. We have some of the most lax laws in the country, and it's driven up insurance rates, both residential and commercial. And so we need more tort reform. We do.
Greg, what do you think?
Well, first, we don't have enough time on your show for me to respond to everything that he said. Yeah. I have respect for Mr. Sabatini, but I respectfully disagree with a lot that he said. One thing that jumped out at me right away was that he said the majority of these lawsuits involving property insurance claims are frivolous. That's just flat out false. He has no evidence to support that, and I believe that's more politically motivated than factually based. I personally, over my career, I've represented judges in the area. I've represented attorneys who defend these insurance companies on these exact claims. They send me referrals. And so the fact that he just gave a broad brush and said the majority of these lawsuits are frivolous is not accurate whatsoever. As you know, Justin, you're an attorney. There are several mechanisms that lawyers can use to dismiss cases in Florida. One in particular, and I just want to quote this one law. I won't bore you to death with all the different mechanisms lawyers can use, but one is a statute called 57.105. The name of the statute is Sanctions for Raising Unsupported Claims or Defenses. And so that allows either party in a lawsuit to, and the judge can do this on their own as well, to sanction the other side if they take a position that's frivolous, meaning not supported by the law or facts. So if Mr. Sabatini is accurate in what he said, that the majority of these are frivolous, he'd be able to show you thousands of dismissals of these lawsuits under this exact law.
Right. And the 57105 thing it's scary sometimes when you get one from another lawyer, because it's literally saying that as a lawyer you filed something frivolous, which we can't do. We're just not allowed to do that. So it gets a little bit scary. But then I think sometimes other lawyers will use 57105. Sorry about all the numbers. 57105.
Yeah, there's a lot of numbers going on.
I know. 57105. I think they'll use it as leverage though when maybe their position's not supported either. And it's weird, but here's the reason why I think we have to file suit against insurance companies sometimes. And as we sit here today, as rates are skyrocketing, insurance rates are going up, homeowners insurance rates are going up for everybody. These insurance companies oftentimes don't want to pay what they should pay to help have your home repaired, or they deny the claim altogether. What if we didn't have lawyers at the end of the day? What if we didn't have lawyers? They would just run rampant throughout this whole thing.
They wouldn't be held accountable.
Yeah.
It's that simple. And the property market would go in a downward spiral because people would not be able to afford to repair their homes or businesses. I mean, let's face it, we live in a state that faces catastrophic weather events probably more than any other state, or at least rather up there in the top 2 or 3.
Right.
And with all these catastrophic hurricanes, hail events, when these claims get denied, consumers would have nowhere to go. They wouldn't be able to hire a lawyer without coming out of pocket for retainer fees or hourly rates. They wouldn't be able to fight the insurance companies.
Sometimes you and I, because we're in this business, we kind of assume that the general public knows more than they actually do. I find it almost scary that we have homeowners right now who have damage to their home. They hear from so many different people. They hear from their own insurance company, their own insurance adjuster, the public adjuster, the lawyer, the roofing company, the general contractor, and everyone's kind of saying something different. You know, it almost seems like we need a quarterback in this process, you or someone else who has a team around them who are trustworthy, because it is a scary time for a homeowner. Literally, they're sitting there in their kitchen having dinner with their family, and water's coming through their ceiling. This is scary stuff.
That's exactly true. And what's good about what I do is people can come to me, at least based on the way the laws are in Florida right now, and I can provide a free service to them and say, look, here's what we can do for you. Let me take a look at your insurance policy. Tell me what damage you have so I can evaluate it for free, and I can let you know how I can help and the process. And at that point, if they say, yes, let's do it, that's fine. And I try and negotiate, as you know, try and get that claim resolved without going into litigation. But at the same time, if they say, no, I don't want to go that route, I just want to talk to my contractor, see what will happen with the insurance claim, that's fine. Yeah. Not a problem.
And look, if you have damage to your home, no matter what the damage may be, call Greg. This is a free call for you. He's a lawyer. He has to do the right thing by you. He's obligated to do that. And he'll answer your call right now. 321-282-1055. You will not regret making that phone call. Maybe the answer is there's nothing we can do. You're SOL. But likely the answer is there's something that we can do, Greg. And it brings me to the question. So a lot of people did have damage recently. Some of it was flooding. Some of it was wind damage. We saw a lot of both of those types of damages in Central Florida. Is there a difference in flood versus wind damage when it comes time to making a claim with my homeowner's insurance?
Yes, absolutely. A big difference. Flood is when the water's coming in from the ground level into your home. Wind damage, if you get it coming from the roof or the ceiling, even through the walls, cracks in the stucco, things like that, that's going to be caused by wind. And a big difference is that wind damage is almost always going to be covered under your typical homeowner's insurance policy. The flood damage is going to be covered under a separate policy that a lot of Floridians don't have unless they're in a mandatory flood zone. And in those cases, your mortgage company requires that you have that flood insurance. But a lot of people don't have it that probably should.
Yeah. How does an insurance company determine, or how do I fight back when they say, the roof's just old, it's just wear and tear, versus, well, it was fine right before this storm rolled through, and now it's not fine? How does that argument happen?
Well, insurance companies make that argument because wear and tear is not covered. I mean, your homeowner's insurance policy is not a maintenance policy, that's for sure. But a lot of times the insurance companies come out and they'll say, yes, I know your roof's leaking, but it's just because it's old, it's worn out. have a licensed contractor or a licensed roofer come out and take a look at your roof. If they get out there and examine it and tell you, they'll take pictures and show you some wind damage. Ask for that proof. Say, look, where is the wind damage? Show it to me. If you think that it's present on your roof and you're shown those pictures and that evidence by a licensed contractor, then it's most likely wind damage, and you should have the ability to fight your insurance company.
And we talked about this earlier, and the first time we met, actually, we had lunch, a few months ago, and I was very impressed when you said, look, not most, but a lot of attorneys just want to immediately file suit because they think they can get bigger attorney's fees, and inevitably when you file suit early on, the case is going to take longer, year and a half. You really sit down with your clients and say, let's see if we can maybe negotiate something early on as opposed to spending 2 years in litigation here, because this is a sucky time for a homeowner. When you have damage to your home, at best you have a tarp on it, but this is not a fun way to live in your home, your prized possession. There's a benefit, I think, to trying to get this thing resolved quicker, sooner, rather than later, longer.
Absolutely. My goal is not to drag this on for my clients. They want to get back in their home or their business as soon as they possibly can. I've been doing this for so long that I've established a lot of good relationships with the adjusters at the insurance companies. I'm not here to say all insurance companies are bad, all insurance adjusters are evil. It's not the case. I get along with a lot of them. And we get these claims resolved most of the time without having to go into a lawsuit. That's my goal. As I've told you before, my clients don't care how much I recover in attorney's fees.
No, of course
they don't
not.
care. They want their homes repaired. They want their businesses repaired so they can get back in business or back in their home and live their lives like it was prior to the storm.
It is weird when you're living in a house and it just has a big blue tarp on it for months and months and months, and that's what Greg Krak is here to prevent. Greg, great job as always, buddy.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Very soon. And again, if you've had any damage whatsoever, I would call Greg. I would call him today, 321-282-1055. A special treat up next. You've heard his name around. We won't mention any specific cases, of course, but Vincent Citro has been handling federal law here, criminal law in this market for a very long time. Some names that you've heard of. Is it better to be charged with a crime federally or by the state? What do you think? It's an answer that I don't have, but we'll answer that as Behind the Law continues. Does student loan debt have you spinning out of control? You are not helpless. At Attorneys Justin Clark and Associates, our goal is to lower or even eliminate your monthly payments. Call me today or visit youhavepower.com and take back control of your financial life. Here we are with personal injury attorney Michael Mills. But Michael, you're way more than an attorney. You've been able to bridge the gap between doctor, lawyer, and consumer with your Injury Assistance Network, or IAN as it's known. Tell me about it.
Well, what it is basically it's a online personal injury network of providers, both medical and service, and it just helps personal injury attorneys and the general public find quality healthcare providers and service providers to take care of them when they've been injured in an accident. Because
the medical part of it is a huge piece in getting these clients recovered. You're a great personal injury attorney, though, as well. A lot of advertisement for PI guys out there. What separates you?
22 years.
Yeah.
My first 6 years, I did work for the insurance companies. I worked at one of the largest insurance defense firms in Florida. And then for the last 16 years, I've been representing the actual injured victims, as well as some of the providers as well, doing PIP work. Okay. So I'm able to take that, what I learned, and bring it to the plaintiff side. Excellent, man. Keep up the wonderful work. And whether you're a doctor, whether you're a lawyer, or a consumer who's been injured in an accident, call Michael Mills today. He's over on the good guy side, I would say, right? Yes, absolutely. What side did you like better? This side, definitely. Yeah. I've come to the light. Exactly. I'm glad you did. Michael Mills, the Injury Assistance Law Firm. Give him a call today if you've been injured in an accident. But again, if you're a doctor or a lawyer, you need help finding help in that regard, call Michael Mills. Do IRS threats have you spinning out of control? You are not helpless. At Attorneys Justin Clark and Associates, our goal is to lower or even eliminate your IRS debt. Call me today or visit youhavepower.com and take back control of your financial life.
Another special treat for you today. This man has represented some names you've heard of before. We will not mention their names, but if you've been charged with a federal crime in this market and you're famous, you normally will call this guy. Won't use their names, but I will use his name. Vincent Citro is here. How are you, buddy, Vince?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
I see you on the news a lot, so you're probably not nervous today, obviously.
I've done this once or twice, so I'm not going to get too nervous.
Federal criminal defense, a lot of times you do represent people who have a name we've heard, let's say. What are the differences when you're representing a defendant who is well-known, who is a public figure versus a private citizen?
You know, first off, in some respects, it's very much the same. I mean, the constitutional rights, the things that I have to worry about, first and foremost, are going to transcend anybody, whether it's a name you've heard or a name you haven't heard. But when it comes to someone who's got a public persona, you've got to make sure that you're taking into account their public life. Yeah. You know, you can't dry up what their ability is to go out and make an income, to serve the public in some instances. And so it's always a careful balance, but making sure that you're keeping your eye on, really, in my world, what's most important, and that is the ramifications that person is facing in the criminal justice system. And while you've heard some of the people in the news that I might represent, my best work is with people whose names you haven't heard, because we've dissuaded prosecutors or cops from bringing charges against them.
Beautiful. And a lot of that work might happen before charges are actually even filed, right? What goes on before charges are filed? When you hear there's an investigation, I guess, but then nothing's ever filed, how does that process work?
A lot of it is digging into what your client tells you about what happened, because of course the client lived through it. So the client has a perspective of who, what, when, where, and why. And sometimes that will match up with law enforcement or a prosecutor's point of view. Sometimes it doesn't. And so it's also building that rapport with the prosecutor or the cops in order to get them to trust you a little bit, to show some of that information so that you can make a comprehensive presentation to the deciding authority and say, look, this is not a case you want to charge. This is one where nothing happened. The person's actually innocent. And sadly, in our culture, we instinctively think when we see on the news somebody in handcuffs, that person must have done something wrong or they wouldn't be there. And so being mindful that that is an image you have to combat helps you do all those things pre-charging.
A lot of what you do, I think we could refer to as white-collar crime. For someone at home, what does that mean exactly?
I predominantly represent those folks who are engaged in trades or professions, so doctors, lawyers, accountants, elected officials, people who otherwise look at the criminal justice system solely as, well, I might have gotten called for jury duty, or I would never find myself charged with a crime.
Right.
And so that's generally who I represent.
Take me through that. So a white-collar defendant, someone who's probably done fairly well for themselves financially, they probably have 2 kids at home and a wife, and now all of a sudden they've worked so hard and built up their career, and now they're facing federal charges. Take me into the brain of that person. How do they feel?
They're scared. They're terrified. I mean, you have the entire weight of the federal government pointed at you, saying you did something wrong. In fact, almost 4 years ago to the day, one of my clients, and his video is on our website, John Clark Walton, JC, as he's known to his friends and family, and I'm privileged to call myself in that group, woke up to that knock on the door. He was a self-made man. He had a wife, 3 kids at home. And the marshals were there to arrest him for white-collar crimes, conspiring against the United States and engaging in money laundering. It was early in the morning, handcuffed, sat outside his house in a very nice gated community as all of his neighbors were going to work. Yes. And the feds had 3 years to investigate this case. 2 years between when they charged him and we went to trial. A month we sat in a federal criminal courtroom with the IRS, with the FBI, with every 3-letter agency you could think of. And thankfully, in less than 5 hours, the jury saw through the poor job that the government did and acquitted him. But he was terrified. And when you can help be there for someone in that situation, it really is a rewarding experience. I mean, if you think about it, it's the government that investigates you. It's the government that prosecutes you. It's the government, the judge, who adjudicates you, and it's the government that imprisons you. The only person who's not a government actor in that entire process is the criminal defense lawyer.
Yeah, it's a pretty important decision. And if I am charged with a crime federally, let's say, there seem to be a lot more criminal defense attorneys out there who handle state cases, obviously. Should I hire some criminal defense attorney who handles state cases to handle my federal defense?
Yeah, federal court and state court have very few similarities. I mean, there's some constitutional rules, proof beyond a reasonable doubt, the government goes first, you don't have to testify in your own defense, and that's about where the similarities end. Yeah. And so if you're sick and you're told, well, you know, you've got throat cancer, you don't want to go get a podiatrist to do the surgery for you. And so if you are facing federal charges, you want to get a lawyer who has substantial experience in federal court, preferably both prosecuting those cases and defending those cases.
Right. Are my chances of winning decent or not? I mean, you hear about this rate of conviction is very high in federal court.
Right, right. So the feds love to tout that rate of conviction. And in recent years, really all they can do to make the local politicos happy is focus on drug crimes, immigration crimes, gun crimes. And so nationwide, statistically, you see a large number of those cases. Because of the penalties and the kinds of evidence, there's a high conviction rate. But I will tell you, if my trials alone are any indication in the white collar world, I've more than substantially beat their national rate.
Yeah.
And so when you actually get into the individual cases and you get away from sort of the state adopted cases that they probably do 80% of the time, the conviction rate's not nearly as high.
How do they determine if I'm charged state versus federal? How is that decision made?
When we're talking about white collar world, it's going to depend on who did the investigation, the loss amount, whether they think the discovery in the state court case is really going to expose the weaknesses of the case. Because in federal court, you don't get depositions. You get very little discovery. And so if they think they can hide the ball, the case with Mr. Walton, the prosecutor said, I don't want to convince your client he did something wrong. I'll just convince a jury.
Yeah.
And so you get very little.
Wow. Yeah. Why no cameras in the courtroom in federal court? So a lot of people at home don't understand because they see these criminal trials and they're like, wow, I watched the whole trial at home on Court TV or whatever it's called now. That being said, if it's a federal trial, you see the little drawings. Yeah. Exactly.
That's right.
Why is that?
You know, it's just historically they haven't had them in there. No cameras in the U.S. Supreme Court, no cameras in the U.S. Courts of Appeal, and no cameras in the U.S. District Court. You know, post-COVID, you start to hear some oral arguments online a little more, but I think it'll be a long time before you start seeing cameras in a federal courtroom.
Unbelievable. And by all means, if you or someone you know have been charged with a crime, especially by the federal government, there's one person to call, I think. Make the call right now, 321-282-1055. Now, you're a real trial lawyer, so to speak. You go to trial. You go to criminal trials down at that fancy federal courthouse. How do you balance sitting in there in a jury trial for a month or 2 months and still running your practice on the backside? I've always been fascinated with that.
It comes down to having a good staff of people that you trust, and we've got a great staff. Our team of people, our paralegals, our office managers, our legal assistants. I mean, they care about our clients, and we hire people that we know are going to care. And as a result of that, we can go do our thing in court, whether it's state court or federal court. And we do white collar in both contexts. I can be out of town for a month. Indeed, the last 2 trials I had, I was out of town for a total of about 4 months, and my staff back at home made sure we didn't miss a pleading deadline, we didn't miss a hearing, and really that's the key. You got to surround yourself with good people.
Now, when you're booking a hotel for a month-long trial, is it 4 or 5, or will you click both, or just 5 stars?
Yeah, you know,
you want to be comfortable, of course. Like, this is an important time for your client.
I'm never going to be comfortable. I want to be close to the courthouse, so I'm not late.
I see. Perfect. Vincent Citro, excellent work today. Keep up the great work. We'll be following you in the media, of course, too. But you know, I think a lot of the clients that you had, hope they know how lucky they are to have you, because this is a scary time when you're charged with a crime, especially in federal court.
Yeah, thanks so much.
You got it. Here's what we're going to do. A very quick break. I thought this was a fantastic show, Makaila. What do you think?
Too. Yeah, it was great.
When we come back, we will wrap it up as we do every single week here on Behind the Law with What Did We Learn? Many of you have noticed 2 things. Number 1, your electricity bill is out of control. Or number 2, your house, your most prized possession, your biggest investment, the windows are not good. The great news for you is we have an option my good friends at Renewal by Andersen. Really the only place to turn to. Dan Brigman's here. Dan, always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Well, hey, thank you, Justin. It's glad to be here.
The electricity bill in Florida, especially in the summer, is outrageous. And a lot of people don't understand that this has a lot to do with their windows or the lack of quality with the windows they currently have.
Absolutely. We listen to our air conditioners run all day long. And if you think about it, you're looking at a little square piece of glass in your house and you're walking up to it, you feel a little bit of heat, and you don't think much about it. But when you do the math, if you take every window in your house, it's more than 1.5 wall space of your whole house.
It's really unbelievable. And what I've noticed about getting windows through Renewal is that if you really do the math, because you're going to save money on your electricity bill, maybe 20% even, if not more, and you start talking about the programs that you offer in regards to no down payment, very low interest rates, sometimes it's cheaper to actually buy windows than not.
Yeah, you're giving yourself money back when you're buying windows, if you think about it. With the promos we have going on now, buy two, get the third one 60% off, our 12-month no-no, our 24-month no-no. When you put all those in and you get the energy efficient savings that you're going to get from the highest rated Energy Star window in the industry, it just makes mathematical sense.
And you are kind of come in there and help me with the design. You're going to tell me what I need because I don't know. Absolutely.
We're going to show up. Our design consultants are trained specialists. We're not salespeople. We're not going to rub your eyebrows off. We're going to come out, we're going to inspect, and find out what you need and find out what fits your budget.
Always a pleasure, Dan. Do yourself a favor. Call Renewal by Andersen today. They will not disappoint. The official partner of the Jaguars, Tampa Bay Lightning, Orlando Solar Bears. I trust them. So should you. When it comes to roofing, there's one place I would call. Obviously, Universal Roof and Contracting. I have Justin here. Corey is here. Welcome, guys. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Great to have you back. 30 years in business. Obviously trustworthy, family-owned, but also veteran-owned. Tell me what you have going on for the veterans.
Yeah, so we do this every year around this time. We actually give a roof away to a veteran in need. So the way to get into that is you go to our website at universalroof.com. There's going to be a banner at the top of the webpage, and you just click on that. You get to nominate your veteran. You get to tell their story, explain what they need, and during this time, we're actually going to pick a winner on our radio show on Veterans Day, and we're going to announce that winner live on the air.
Love it. When it comes to a roof, it's an expensive thing. It really is, and sometimes the insurance covers it. Sometimes you have to stroke a check. The difference often is the inspection process at the beginning. Tell me about your inspection process.
Yeah, it's absolutely free for us to come out and do a free inspection. We're going to get on property. We're going to actually get on the roof. We're going to get in the attic. We're going to walk the perimeter and develop a scope of work that works for the homeowner, that solves their problem and ultimately gives them the roof that they want and need.
And that's the most important part. And you're sitting at the kitchen table with them. You're not taking aerial photos. You're actually going there to see what do we really need? What roof do we need? And sometimes it's repair, sometimes it's replace, and you never overpromise. I know when it comes to my family, to my roof, Universal Roof and Contracting is the place that I would go. And you two are also super cool, by the way, as you know. Awesome. Do yourself a favor. If you need a roof, it's Universal Roof and Contracting. Call them today. As always, we wrap it up today with what did we learn? Makaila, I know you learned that I don't shut up. You said it during the break. You couldn't ask a question. Is that true? Ladies and gentlemen at home, do I do stop talking?
No, you did right there because you were waiting for a response. So, I mean, yeah.
So what did you learn?
I mean, I learned a lot.
Other than that.
I learned a lot, Justin. I learned that they're still drawn in federal court. I find that fascinating. And, you know, I never want to have to deal with that because it seems very scary.
I agree. I also learned that, look, I think that trial lawyers are very important when it comes to insurance claims. If we didn't have trial lawyers, we would still have the Ford Pinto blowing up. We would certainly not be able to have our house repaired because the insurance company wouldn't pay us. Also, I learned that I think that if I was charged with a crime in federal court, I'm definitely hiring Vince.
Oh, yeah.
No doubt
makes
about
sense.
it. He will go to trial. Excellent job, Makaila Nichols. As always, we'll see you again next week.
Yes.
And thank you, as always, for joining us here. See you next week for more Behind the Law.
The proceeding was a paid advertisement. The views expressed were the sole responsibility